The desert morning was quiet, except for the soft hiss of wind over the sand dunes. Thin rays of sunlight touched the edges of the broken hills, and the air shimmered with heat. Though the day had barely begun, Sergeant Cole walked at the front of his small recon team boots crunching on loose gravel as they moved through a narrow valley between jagged rocks. The mission was supposed to be quick in and out before the enemy even knew they were there, but nothing ever went exactly as planned. Out here, each man carried the weight of silence on his shoulders because there was no sound of engines in the sky and no comforting thump of rotor blades above them. They all knew why. The Apache gunship that was meant to watch over them had been declared out of service before dawn. Something about a gearbox failure and parts that were not available in the field. HQ said no air support today, no cover if things went bad, and deep down everyone felt the unease of moving forward without that. Protection Cole checked his map and glanced at the steep cliffs on either side. The high walls made the valley a perfect kill zone if the enemy chose to set an ambush. He kept his eyes moving, scanning every shadow and every ledge for movement. Sweat ran down his back beneath the body armor. The men behind him followed in a tight line, their rifles up, their expressions tense. They were several miles from friendly lines, and every step took them deeper into the danger zone Cole could almost hear, his own heartbeat over the faint crunch of boots in the sand. Then something changed. A faint sound rose from behind them, carried by the wind. At first, it was nothing more than a whisper, like the wind playing tricks. Cole slowed and tilted his head, trying to catch it again. The others noticed, too, and the line came to a halt. Everyone listened. It came again, this time clearer. A distant, low thump, 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 like a drum beat under the horizon. Rotor blades, maybe, but that made no sense. The Apache was down. They had been told that twice by HQ Corporal Vega, frowned and shook his head, whispering that it must be wind echoing off the rocks. Cole wanted to believe him, but he could not. The sound was getting louder now, steady and deliberate. It was not the random howl of wind. It was mechanical, and it was coming closer. A shiver ran up his spine. If it was not their Apache, then it could be enemy air. And if it was enemy air, then they were in trouble. Before he could speak, the radio on his shoulder crackled to life. The voice that came through was calm, smooth, and somehow familiar. Check 6, it said. 2 words. No call sign, no explanation. Just check. 6 Cole's eyes went wide, and he spun around, scanning the empty sky behind them. The rest of the team did the same, rifles shifting up. The sun was low to the east, casting long shadows that made it hard to see clearly. For a moment, Cole saw nothing, just the glare of light and the shimmer of heat. Then a shape emerged low over the horizon, dark against the brightness. It was fast, it was low, and it was definitely a helicopter. The thump of the rotors grew into a roar as the aircraft swept toward them, hugging the terrain. It was an Apache. There was no mistake now. Its silhouette was unmistakable, with the long nose, the sensor dome, and the stub wings armed with missiles. But Cole's mind was racing because it was impossible for this to be real. That gunship was grounded in the motor pool, broken beyond quick repair. He had walked past it. That morning, the helicopter came in over the ridge, banking slightly, so the gunner's seat faced the valley. Dust exploded into the air as the rotors tore at the ground. Cole shielded his eyes and looked up into the cockpit. He saw a helmet visor, glinting in the sun, and behind it, the outline of a pilot. She raised a gloved hand briefly in a signal that was part greeting, part warning. Cole felt his stomach tighten. Whoever she was, she had just told him to check his 6. That meant danger behind. Then Cole dropped to one knee and swung his rifle around, scanning the path they had come. There it was, movement in the distance. 2 fast-moving trucks kicking up plumes of dust as they tore across the desert floor. They were coming straight for the team from the rear, enemy technicals with mounted weapons. The valley had trapped them, and now the enemy was closing in. The calm voice returned in his earpiece. "Hold position, I have you in sight." It was the same woman who had said, "Check 6. Her tone was steady without fear. Cole did not know if she was even cleared to be flying, but right now she was the only thing between his team and a massacre. The Apache roared overhead, banking hard to bring its cannon to bear on the incoming trucks. The sun caught the paint on its fuselage, revealing scratches, dust, and signs of recent rough handling. Whoever had gotten it in the air had done so without the luxury of a clean maintenance job. Cole felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. This was not supposed to happen. This was not supposed to be possible. The enemy trucks were almost in range when the Apache dipped its nose slightly. The gun barrel moved like an eye locking onto prey. Cole could feel the tension in the air. The rest of his team crouched behind rocks, rifles ready, eyes darting between the trucks and the helicopter. They were caught between disbelief and hope, and above it all that voice again, calm as before, engaging now. The cannons spun up and the first shells ripped through the valley air. The sound of the cannon filled the valley in a deep, rolling thunder that shook the rocks under the team's feet. Bright flashes burst from the Apache's nose, and streams of smoke trailed each shell as they struck the lead truck. The vehicle jerked, sideways tires shredding under the impact as its front end smashed into the sand. A second burst found the truck behind it ripping through the engine block and sending black smoke into the sky. The roar of the rotors mixed with the echo of gunfire. Bouncing off the cliffs, it was chaos and it was salvation. All at once. Sergeant Cole kept his head low behind a rock, scanning the scene as dust swirled around him. The helicopter was moving with a strange grace, dipping and banking like it was part of the wind itself. Each maneuver kept it just out of enemy weapon range while still raining down fire with precision. Cole had seen good pilots before, but whoever was in that cockpit was more than good. This was the kind of flying that came from instinct and nerve. The kind of flying that ignored rules when lives were on the line. The radio on Cole's shoulder came alive again. "Move to cover at the West Ridge." Her voice said calm and steady. Cole signaled to the others, and they began to shift. Across the rocky ground, keeping low, the Apache banked sharply, placing itself between the retreating trucks and the team. Through the cockpit glass, Cole caught another glimpse of the pilot. A mirrored visor hid her eyes, but something about her posture. The way she moved told him she was in complete control. Corporal Vega spoke into his mic, asking for the pilot's name and call sign. For a moment there was only the hum of the rotor blades and the hiss of static. Then the voice returned. "Viper 2. 1, she said, no more and no less. Cole had never heard of that call in his unit, but right now, it did not matter. She was here and she was fighting for them. One of the trucks still moved its driver, pushing hard across the open ground. A heavy weapon, mounted in the back, spat long bursts of fire toward the helicopter. Tracer rounds sliced the air, but each one passed harmlessly as the Apache twisted out of the line of fire. The pilot answered with a short, controlled burst from the cannon, and the weapon on the truck went silent. The truck slowed, then stopped its crew, leaping out and vanishing into the desert beyond the rocks. The team reached the cover of the West Ridge, their boots sliding on loose gravel. Cole pressed against the cool, Stone catching his breath and watching the helicopter circle overhead. Something about the whole thing still felt impossible. He had seen that same Apache sitting dead in the motor pool less than 4 hours ago, its panels open, wires exposed, mechanics shaking their heads over a damaged gearbox. There was no way it should be in the air. Yet here it was. Cole spoke low into his mic, asking where she had come from. There was a pause. Then the voice returned. "You were marked on enemy maps," she said. "They were moving to cut you off. I could not let that happen." Cole felt the weight of those words settle over him. She had broken every rule to get here, and she had done it. Knowing the risks, the Apache slowed its orbit and lowered altitude until it was flying almost level with the ridge. Cole could see every detail. Now the scuffed paint, the dents, the streaks of desert dust baked into the skin. This machine had been through something before it even reached them. And so had the pilot. She spoke again. "Enemy scouts on your 6 kilometers, maybe less." Cole looked over the ridge and saw nothing, but he trusted her tone. Vega asked if she had backup, but she answered with a quiet negative. This was it, just her. And the machine Cole ordered his team to move along the ridge, keeping the high ground. The helicopter shadow followed them across the sand like a dark guardian. Every few minutes, the voice would call out bearings and distances. Each time, the warnings proved real as enemy figures or vehicles appeared right where she said they would as the sun climbed higher. The heat shimmered, and the air felt heavier. Cole could feel the fatigue setting in, but the steady rhythm of the rotor blades gave him focus. The Apache moved ahead, slightly scanning the path before them. Her voice came again. "Watch the north ridge movement in the rocks." Cole raised his rifle and sighted in just in time to see a figure with a shoulder launcher. Before the enemy could fire, the Apache's gun barked once and the figure vanished behind a cloud of dust and debris. The team pushed forward faster, now spurred on by the knowledge that their unseen allies were still trying to close the trap. Every step was a gamble, but the voice in the sky kept them one move ahead. Cole found himself wondering who she was, not just her name, but her story. What made someone take a broken helicopter into the air alone and without orders, just to protect a small recon team miles from safety? The thought stayed with him as the ridge began to narrow, and the valley ahead opened into a wider basin. They were close to their waypoint, but something in her tone when she spoke next made the hair rise on his neck. "Check north again," she said, tight and fast, multiple signatures closing. It was not over yet, and Cole knew part of him hoped she would stay with them until it was, but part of him feared what it might cost her. The sound of the warning in her voice carried a weight that made every man on the ridge move faster. Cole signaled for the team to spread out and take positions behind rocks and scrub brush while he scanned the north with his scope. Heat shimmer blurred the view, but then shapes appeared moving low and quick among the ridges. At least a dozen fighters armed and closing in from different angles. It was the kind of trap that could crush a small team in minutes, but above them, the shadow of the Apache swept across the ground like a dark wing. The helicopter slowed, then drifted sideways, holding position, while the gun turret tracked one group of enemy fighters. Cole could see the pilot's helmet turn slightly as if she was watching. More than just the targets. Then her voice came through again. "Hold your fire. Conserve ammo. Let me thin them out." Before anyone could reply, the cannon opened up in short, controlled bursts, kicking up plumes of sand and rock where the fighters had been. Those who survived scattered in panic, vanishing behind cover, but the Apache followed them, patiently firing again whenever they showed themselves. Vega shouted over the comm, asking how she had even gotten the bird in the air. The answer came, after a pause, like she was deciding how much to tell them. "It was broken," she said, "gearbox fried, hydraulics failing. I fixed what I could and bypassed the rest." Cole felt his stomach tighten because bypassed hydraulics meant flying without safety systems. One wrong move and the chopper would roll into the ground. She had chosen to take that risk just to reach them. The fight on the ridge slowed for a moment, and Cole used the brief lull to think he had never heard of Viper. 2-1 on the roster, and her voice was not familiar from any briefing. Yet she moved like she knew the terrain and the enemy's habits better than anyone. It was almost as if she had been watching them long before the mission started. He wondered if she was one of the old hands who had gone off the books working special runs no one talked about. The Apache dipped low, weaving through the rocky outcrops like a hawk chasing prey. Her movements were sharp and exact, never wasting a second or a bullet. Every burst of fire forced the enemy back, buying the team precious ground. Cole ordered his men to push forward toward a higher ridge where they could get a better line of sight. The helicopter followed their movement, shifting position to guard the open flanks through. The canopy glass Cole caught flashes of her hands moving across the controls, fast, precise, never hesitating even when warning lights blinked across the panel. It was clear the machine was struggling. Dark streaks of oil marked the fuselage near. The tail and small wisps of smoke curled from a vent under the engine. But she kept it in the fight, like a wounded predator, refusing to back down. One of the enemy fighters broke from cover with a shoulder launcher aimed high. Cole shouted a warning, but she had already seen it. The Apache dropped, suddenly losing altitude so fast it almost skimmed the ground. The rocket screamed overhead and detonated harmlessly against a cliff. Before the dust settled, the cannon barked once, and the man with the launcher was gone. Cole knew then that she was not just skilled. She was reading the battle faster than anyone on the ground. As the enemy pulled back further, her voice came again. "You are still not safe. They will regroup and push harder." Cole asked if she could stay with them until they reached the extraction point. Silence filled the radio for a heartbeat. Then she answered. "Negative fuel is low. Systems are failing. You have 15 minutes of cover at best." Her tone was steady, but Cole could hear something under it, a strain she was trying to hide. The ridge ahead narrowed into a pass, and beyond that was open desert. If they made it through, they could call for pickup, but in the open they would be exposed. Cole told her they would. "Move fast and keep low." She acknowledged with a short copy, and the Apache surged ahead, scouting the pass. Rocks jutted from the walls, and deep shadows hid possible threats. Cole kept his rifle ready, eyes flicking between the ground ahead and the shadow overhead. Halfway through the pass, the radio crackled again. "Contact ahead. Multiple heat signatures moving to block you." The Apache banked hard, disappearing over the far ridge line. For a moment, the only sound was the wind. Then the ground trembled as her cannon and rockets tore into the enemy ahead, clearing the path in a storm of dust and fire. When she reappeared, the helicopter was lower, slower, and trailing smoke from the engine bay. Cole's gut twisted, knowing she was burning the last of her strength to keep them alive. They pushed through the pass, emerging into the wide basin beyond. Sunlight blazed off the sand, and the heat rose in shimmering waves. The Apache came alongside them for a moment, close enough that Cole could see. The pilot's head turned toward him. She raised one hand briefly in a signal that felt like both reassurance and farewell. Then she climbed again, banking toward the north where the enemy had fled. Cole watched until she was just a dark shape against the bright sky. The voice came through one last time for now. "Keep moving and remember your 6." The radio went silent, and the sky felt bigger and emptier without the steady thump of her rotors. The basin stretched wide and empty under the harsh sun, the heat rising from the sand like invisible waves that blurred the horizon. Cole led the team forward, moving fast but careful, because he knew the open ground was both a blessing and a curse. It gave them space to see what was coming, but also left them exposed to anything that might be hiding just beyond sight. Every crunch of boots on the dry ground felt too loud, every breath too sharp in the heavy air. The shadow of the Apache was gone now, and without it the silence felt heavier. Cole tried to push away the thought that their airborne guardian might not return, but the worry pressed at the back of his mind. They had 15 minutes, maybe less, before they were on their own. Completely. That clock was ticking. Whether they could hear it or not, Vega moved up alongside Cole, pointing toward a jagged ridge that cut across the basin like the spine of some buried beast. The maps said they needed to pass through a narrow cut. Between two rock walls just ahead, Cole did not like it. A narrow pass meant limited movement and no room to dodge if someone was waiting inside. But it was the only way forward without adding hours to their route. They approached the mouth of the pass, rifles ready, eyes scanning the shadows. The walls rose high on either side, blotting out some of the sun and making the air cooler but also darker. Every shadow looked deep enough to hide a threat. Cole raised his hand to slow the team, then dropped to one knee to study the ground, boot prints fresh ones, the kind that said someone had moved through here recently and fast. The radio crackled and her voice came through sharp and clear. Hold position now, movement on both sides, relief washed. Over Cole hearing her again, but it was short-lived. Before they could react, the sound of small rocks tumbling down the ridge walls reached their ears. Figures began to appear above them, rifles in hand, taking positions along the edge. An ambush. The trap had been set perfectly, and they had walked right into it. The Apache's shadow swept across the pass as the helicopter roared back into view. It came in low, banking hard, so that the cannon could angle upward toward the ridge lines. The first burst of fire shattered the rocks beside one of the enemy fighters, sending him scrambling for cover. More figures darted between boulders trying to stay ahead of the moving gun sight. The smell of dust and cordite filled the air as the echoes bounced. Down the narrow space, Cole used the distraction to push his men forward deeper into the cut, where the rocks offered better angles for return fire. Vega and two others laid down covering shots, forcing the enemy to keep their heads down. The Apache shifted its fire to the opposite ridge where another group had started to advance. Each move of the helicopter was quick and precise, but Cole could hear the engine straining a deep, grinding note under the thump of the rotors. Her voice came again, short and urgent. "Moving to block the ridge path, you have 2 minutes." Cole understood she was holding them back, but she could not stay in one spot too long without becoming a target herself. The team pressed harder, feet slipping on loose gravel, as they scrambled toward the far exit of the pass. Behind them, the air shook with the impact of her rockets as they struck the mouth of a narrow path the enemy had been using. A cloud of dust and rock rolled down, cutting off that route entirely as they neared the end of the pass. Cole glanced up and caught a glimpse of her through the canopy glass. She was leaning into the controls hands, steady despite the flashing warning lights all around her. Her visor hid her eyes, but somehow he could feel her focus like a physical thing. There was no hesitation, no doubt, only the work of keeping them alive. The enemy fighters began to fall back, realizing the trap had failed, but Cole knew they would regroup. They always did. The helicopter swung around one last time, hovering just long enough to unleash another burst that kept the retreating enemy scattered. Then it lifted higher. Banking toward the north again, Cole and the team burst out of the pass into open ground. Once more, the sunlight, almost blinding after the shadows. They kept moving, putting as much distance as they could between themselves and the ambush site. The radio stayed quiet for a moment. Then her voice returned lower now, almost strained. "Keep moving. They will try again." Cole wanted to ask about her fuel, her systems, her plan, but something in her tone told him she would not answer. Not now. They moved in silence, the sound of their own breathing loud in their ears. Somewhere far off, the faint thump of rotors still carried on the wind. It was a reminder that she was out there circling somewhere, watching, even if they could not see her. Cole hoped it would last, but deep down he knew that the machine she flew was running on borrowed time, and so was she. The sun was high now, burning the desert floor and making the air ripple like water over hot stone. Cole felt the weight of the heat pressing down on his shoulders as the team moved across the open ground toward a line of low hills in the distance. Every step was an effort, but no one slowed because the faint sound of rotors in the distance meant their airborne shield was still there. Yet Cole knew that sound was thinner than before, like the helicopter was straining just to stay in the air. Radio came alive with her voice. "Fuel critical hydraulics, unstable. I can give you 5 more minutes, maybe less." Cole glanced at Vega and saw the same thought in his eyes. They had no choice but to use every second she had left. The team picked up, speed boots pounding against the sand, kicking up dust with every stride. Above them, the Apache dipped low, its shadow racing beside them like a dark animal. Cole could see the wisp of black smoke trailing from the tail section and the flicker of light across cracked panels. Then her voice sharpened. "Contact ahead. Vehicles, fast movers coming from the east." Cole signaled the team to break left toward a shallow rise where they could set up a firing line. Moments later, 2 enemy trucks burst into view, engines roaring as they sped across the flat ground. The mounted guns on their beds swung toward the team. Before they could fire, the Apache slid between them and the enemy, its cannon roaring in short, violent bursts. The lead truck skidded sideways in a spray of sand while the second veered off desperately. Trying to escape her line of fire, Cole kept his eyes on the helicopter. It moved with the same deadly precision as before, but now there was a slight lag in each maneuver, a hesitation, like the machine was fighting her. The engine note wavered and the tail dipped dangerously before she corrected it. Another burst from the cannon shredded the second truck, sending it crashing into a low dune. The threat was gone for the moment, but Cole could feel the tension building. Her voice came again. 2 minutes until I have to leave. Make them count." Cole ordered the team to push for the hills, moving fast, while he kept scanning the sky, afraid of the moment her shadow would vanish. Behind them, a distant rumble grew louder. Enemy reinforcements, no doubt responding to the failed ambush at the ridge. The Apache turned toward the sound, its rotors beating the air as it accelerated away from the team. Cole realized she was moving to intercept them alone. From the hilltop, he watched the small, dark shape of the helicopter meet the dust cloud of the incoming force. The distant flashes of gunfire and the muted thump of rockets carried across the hot air. She was holding them back, buying every last second for the team to reach cover. Cole knew it was costing her precious fuel and pushing her failing systems to the edge. The radio crackled again, voice rougher now, engine temp, critical tail rotor unstable. "I am coming back to you," Cole told her to break off and save the machine, but she ignored the order. Instead, the Apache appeared over the ridge low and fast, trailing a black stream of smoke. Its landing gear almost brushed the sand as it slid sideways, firing one last burst into the enemy still chasing them. The ground shook under the impact, and the pursuing trucks ground to a halt, their crews scattering into the desert. The helicopter slowed and hovered near the hill where the team had taken position. From this close, Cole could see the damage clearly. Shattered panels, dented armor, and the steady drip of fluid from beneath the fuselage. The machine was hurt badly, yet she kept it steady in the air. Her visor turned toward them, and she raised a gloved hand in a quick, sharp "Signal move," she said in the radio. "Go now. I will hold for 60 seconds, no more." Cole did not waste time. He signaled the team, and they dropped down the far side of the hill, moving toward the extraction point still 2 kilometers away. The sound of the Apache's rotors stayed with them like a heartbeat. Then it began to fade, replaced by the crackle of small arms fire behind them. Cole forced himself not to look back, knowing that every moment she stayed in the fight was another moment they were not being cut down. When the firing finally stopped, the radio was silent. The hills shielded them from view, and from whatever was happening behind, Cole kept the team moving until the terrain began to slope down toward a patch of broken ground that offered cover. Only then did he allow himself to look back over the ridgeline. The sky above it was empty and still. He tightened his grip on his rifle and turned away. The mission was not over, and neither was the danger, but somewhere out there. In the vast desert, a lone pilot had risked everything to give them this chance. Cole could still hear her last words in his head. "Go now, I will hold." And he knew that whatever came next, those words would stay with him for the rest of his life.